Let's talk about power and why shamans are so obsessed with power. My name is John Moore, and I am a shamanic practitioner and teacher from the state of Maine. And today I'm going to talk to you all about power, what power is, how shamanic people look at power, why are we so obsessed with power and gaining power and restoring power and all of those things. And one of the reasons I want to talk about this is there are these sort of truisms out there that are judgmental on the surface, that sort of have people looking at things from a non-neutral perspective, and so they automatically think that's bad. So one example of that is the thoughts around power, and there are expressions like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is a very absolute statement, right? Power corrupts always, every time. So I'm going to talk about what power is and why shamans are always looking to increase or restore power, both of their clients and in themselves. Power, there are lots of different definitions of power, but if we take the sort of physics definition of power, power is simply the capacity to do work. Power is the ability to get things done. That's it. And in that definition, it's not only very neutral, but you can see how power is useful, and power is also extremely necessary. Without power, we wouldn't do anything. Without electricity, which is a form of power, you wouldn't be watching this. Okay? Without the power that comes from the mitochondria in your cells, you wouldn't be alive. So I understand when they're talking about power corrupts, they're talking about a very specific kind of power. But that expression is not very specific. It's very general. It's very all-inclusive. In debate, we would call that a hasty G, which is a hasty generalization, and you would get called out for that sort of thing, as you should, right? So what happens when we generalize that? Power corrupts, power's bad. What we're thinking of is power over people, despotic power, power that when people wield it, all they want is more. And we can look at that with lots of political leaders, lots of dictators and things like that, lots of corruption. And absolutely that is true. But that is only one form of power. As I've already explained, we have electrical power. We have the power that comes from the cells in our body, the power we get from eating food. We have the power of our voice to speak, to pass our messages along. So in the world of shamanism, we need power to move through life unhindered, and we need power to heal, right? There's the power to heal. And these are some of the things that shamans are concerned with, right? Shamanic practitioners and shamanic people, I guess they all are shamanic people, but shamanic people are very concerned about power, not conserving their power, building their power. Why? Because they have to act as a bridge for spirit to work through them to help restore power to their clients. And in order to do that and not take on whatever it is that your clients have come to you with, whatever complaints or illnesses or disease, we have to have the ability to hold space, still be empathetic with somebody, but not to cross that line and take on what they have. And that takes a great deal of power. There are different ways that you can lose power, that one can lose power given the shamanic viewpoint. One of those, I've talked all about soul loss and soul retrieval. Soul loss is a loss of power. It's a loss of a part of your soul, and it can lead to things like depression, dissociation, anxiety, sickness, all of those things. That's a pretty extreme example of power loss. Another one can come from cursing. People can curse you. People do curse other people. There are lots of thoughts out there about whether cursing is bad or good, and whether it creates bad karma, and if it comes back to you three times, whatever. And that might give you a sense that people are not cursing each other because they know better. Well, people do stuff against their better interest all the time. So even if it's true, even if that threefold rule is true, and in my experience, it really isn't, and I'll talk about that in another video, it really isn't, but people do stuff out of anger that is harmful to themselves, and out of jealousy and all kinds of things. People become reactive, and people do all kinds of things. And that includes cursing, doing things like cursing, hexing, jinxing, the evil eye. I'll probably do a whole thing about the evil eye. One of my specialties is in spiritual self-defense, and working on a book about that, and have taught classes about that. And so I'm constantly doing research about methods of spiritual attack. The evil eye is a real thing. It's an energetic attack that can be very damaging, can cause you mishaps, can cause health issues, physical health, mental health, all kinds of stuff. So that is one way that your power can get zapped. There's also soul stealing. So this can happen. People can kind of take parts of you with them. Okay, so what a shamanic healer is trying to do is to really work to restore that power to you, to give you the opportunity to heal. So I liken this to getting a shot of antibiotics, or even vitamins if you go to the doctor, or what have you. If you have some sickness, they might give you some medicine which will help your body combat whatever it is you've got going on. So if you were, if you had an infection, that might be antibiotics. If you broke your arm, a doctor would put a cast on it, right? Which would create the conditions under which your arm could heal. The bones could stitch together and be straight, because the bones wouldn't be moving around. That part of your arm would be immobile for the period of time it took to heal. So that holding in place is a kind of power, right? The ability to stabilize the bone so that it can heal. So that's a lot of what we try to do in shamanic healing sessions, is to provide the spiritual underpinning for people to heal. Ultimately, you heal yourself. Healing doesn't come from the practitioner. It comes through the practitioner, sometimes from spirit, but it doesn't come from the practitioner. And, I don't want to call into question anybody's methodology, and some people might disagree with this approach, and that's fine. There's no judgment here. But I don't ever take credit for healing work. People come to me for healing, and I always tell them that the healing comes from spirit. My job is to be the conduit for spirit, but I'm not doing the healing. And spirit, in fact, is creating the conditions. Sometimes there's instantaneous miraculous healing. That's more of a rare case scenario. Usually what's happening is spirit is creating the conditions, because spirit knows that you have the power to heal yourself. There's just something missing, or some adjustment that needs to be made, or something that needs to be cleared away to allow you to step into that power. And so very frequently I will use the term about stepping into one's power. And that's important. We're here on earth in part to step into our power, to recognize what that is. And in that case, it doesn't mean power over people. It means power with. It means power in relationship to. Okay. Now, let's say I have an intimate relationship with somebody. Say I have a girlfriend, and we can have the kind of relationship, my girlfriend would not tolerate this for 1 second, where I'm the boss because I'm the man in the relationship and I should be in charge, and yada, 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 patriarchal malarkey, nonsense, crap, right? And that is me exerting power. If, she would drop me in a hot second, and she should, if that power system were put into place, there would be this constant downflowing of power, this power over, right? Where I'm constantly having to use my energy, my power to manage somebody else. But instead, what if I have a relationship where I'm in partnership with someone? Ooh, that sounds good, right? Because now we both use our power together. And that is at least twice as powerful at getting us to where we want to go if we're moving in the same direction, if we're cooperating, collaborating, okay? Power with is way better than power over, okay? Power over is limited because depending on how wonderful you are, people are, so when you have, let's look at these authoritarian leaders out there in the world. Well, there's always rebellions. There's always people doing things to subvert them. There's always people doing things behind their back. And the same is true with interpersonal relationships. The same is true with spirit. Spirit will look for ways to make you humble. I laugh because I have experienced that. I'm, don't claim to have lived a perfect life or have learned all of my lessons at the age of 5, much later than that, decades later than that. And I'm not done learning. I'm not going to claim that I'm done learning either. But hubris is not a great thing, like thinking that the power comes from me and that I'm all powerful or any of those things. But power in relationship is extremely useful. It's extremely, it increases, it plays. So imagine, you have, instead of people backstabbing, backfighting, undercutting, all of these things, resenting, all the things that come from power over relationships, you have power with, you have cooperations, you have people working together. Now, one can look at the US Congress, for example, particularly the Senate, and I'm not getting political at all, even though I'm describing a political body. But you look at the Senate in the United States and their rules, right? And they, in general, at the current time, the Senate's kind of divided down the middle between Republicans and Democrats. It might shift one seat or another, but in a lot of cases, they have to, and I don't know what all the rules are because they keep, they set their own rules and all these things. They have this rule, this filibuster rule that says, for a lot of things, they have to get 60 votes to pass it. Well, because they're constantly fighting with each other for who can get over each other, they almost never get 60 votes on anything. There's very, very little that they wind up agreeing on, which is stupid because when the citizens of the United States are polled on almost any issue, you can find a very clear majority out there. And if these people were actually representing the people that they claim to be representing, there would be no question about what laws were being passed. There will always be some people who are unhappy with them. There will always be some people who feel like they got the short end of the stick or they wish things were different. But if you look on, some of the major issues that face some of the major, platforms and positions and issues in the United States, you get 60 to 70% agreement amongst the population. So why can't we get 60 out of 100 or 70 out of 100 votes in the Senate? A lot, all the time. Because they're struggling for power over. And that's become a boondoggle in which not enough things get done. And that's a good example about how power struggles really don't serve. They really don't serve anyone. Even if somebody temporarily comes out on top, ultimately, it's not going to be a great place for them to be. So I realize I've gone off on about 35 different tangents, talking about politics and everything, but I want to give you some examples of why power is not a dirty word. Power is not a bad thing, okay? And we gather power so that we can do things. It's the use of the power that makes it good or bad, as well as our judgment, okay? So like, I tell people, I can go buy a hammer today, and I can use that hammer to go, volunteer and Habitat for Humanity or some other charity and help build a house for people who need housing. What a beautiful use of that tool. That's, that's power. That's, the power to pound in nails, the ability, the capacity to pound in nails that I can't do with my bare fist. Got to use a hammer for that. Or I can take that hammer and I can go hit my neighbor over the head with that. And that would be a horrible use of that tool. So the tool itself, the tool is not evil. The tool is not bad. If your only experience with hammers or getting hit in the head with them, you'd probably think that hammers were pretty bad. So the same thing with power, and it's the same thing with money. We say money is the root of all evil, right? The expression is actually the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's about people getting too attached to money. And we can go back and we can look at how money is a system that comes out of the patriarchy, and in that respect, historically, it has been misused. But money is the way we transact things today. Maybe someday that will change. Maybe we'll do something else. We'll go back to barter. We'll live in tribal cultures where people just pitch in to the best of their ability and everybody has their needs taken care of. But money is a form of power because it is a symbol of effort or a symbol of value, and it provides the capacity to do certain things. I couldn't live in the house I live in without money. Trust me that, I've talked to them. The bank will not take anything else. I have a car because I live out in the middle of nowhere. I live walking distance from nothing. So I couldn't get my groceries without, the money to pay for my car and the money to pay for my groceries. So, a lot of people in the spiritual realm, they look at money as dirty or unclean or what have you. And money can corrupt people. The love of money, the lust for money, the seeking out of money at all costs, the placing, the deification of money above all things, or the placing of too much importance on money over things that can't be valued in money, like love, for example. There is no amount of money in the whole world that I would trade for the love of my children. You couldn't possibly bribe that away from me, because that's more important than any amount of money to me. But I have to have money to feed my children, and I have to have money to buy them clothes. They're teenagers. It's a very expensive process. So anyway, that's a little bit about how maybe thinking about power from a shamanic perspective might provide some flexibility in the way that we judge certain things like power, like money. Okay, and why shamans are very concerned about power. Very frequently, we're concerned about power because it's important. If you're powerlessness to a person basically means that you're deceased. Right? Complete powerlessness is being deceased. And even then your spirit still has quite a supply of power. So that's been a little bit about power and shamanism. I hope this is helpful, and I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. I've got lots of videos for you here and lots more to come, and I will talk to you real soon.